Hello and welcome to FPL Camp. In this video, we shall be going over the basic rules and guidelines of FPL along with some initial tips and strategies to be followed during the season. At the beginning of FPL, you start off with a budget of 100 million and you have to select 15 players from the 20 Premier League teams. One can select a maximum of 3 players from one single Premier League team. The 15 players consists of 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders, 3 forwards. Your playing 11 has to consist of maximum 1 goalkeeper, minimum 3 defenders, minimum 2 midfielders, and minimum 1 forward. The entire season is divided into 38 game weeks. In every game week, one has to field 11 players, maintaining the positional constraints. For example, at least 3 defenders. You can replace players from your 15-man squad before every game week. This is called player transfer. There is one free transfer for every game week. Any additional transfer will cost you minus 4 points. This is called a hit. An unused free transfer can be carried over to the next game week. That is, you can have 2 free transfers. But at maximum during a game week, one can have 2 free transfers. So you cannot have 3 free transfers in the 4th game week if you have not used any transfer for game week 2 and game week 3. Player prices change based on the number of transfers that is done for him. If a player is brought in a number of teams, that is he has high demand, then he has a price rise, and if he is taken out from a number of teams, then he has a price fall. A player can have a price rise or fall of 0.1 million in a day and can have maximum 3 such rises or falls in a game week. That is, for example, let's say if a player ends game week 2 with price 7 million, then before the deadline of game week 3, he can have a maximum price of 7.3 million or a minimum price of 6.7 million. Now, how does this price change affect your FPL team? Let us take the example of Mo Salah, whom you have bought for 12.5 million. If he has a price rise of 0.1 million to make his price at 12.6 million, if you now sell him, you still get just 12.5 million. However, if he has a price rise of 0.2 million from the price that you brought him, that is, now he becomes 12.7 million. Then if you sell him, you get 12.6 million for him. If he has a price rise till 12.8 million, you still get 12.6. To put it simply, for every 0.2 million price rise from the price that you have bought him, you get a profit of 0.1 million if you sell the player. For a price fall, however, it is directly reflected when you sell the player. So if the price of the player becomes 12.4 and you have brought him at 12.5, now if you sell him, you just get 12.4 million. Let's say we put our playing 11 as 4 defenders, 4 midfielders and 2 forwards, that is in a 4-4-2 formation. We have one of each, midfielder, defender and forward on the bench. The first thing that we need to do while we set out a playing 11 is to fix a captain and vice captain amongst the 11 players. A captain's points are doubled, and in case your captain doesn't play, then your vice captain's points are doubled. It is for this reason that choosing a strong vice captain is very important. Many managers casually make someone their vice captain and later on regret it when their captain doesn't play. What is the role of the bench? When one of your playing 11 doesn't play for the entire duration of the match, that is 90 minutes plus injury time, then there is an automatic substitution from the bench at the end of the game week. These substitutions follow some rules. Mainly, a goalkeeper can be subbed with another goalkeeper only and no other outfield player. You can set your bench order, that is, as first, second or third sub. The substitution will happen according to that particular order. Let's say midfielder 4 has not played for the entire match. Then defender 5, who was the first sub, automatically comes in end of game week and not midfielder 5. Hence, it is very important to set your bench order every game week. You don't want to get a 1 point from the bench when you could have gotten 6. Trust me, this hurts. However, it is important to note that even while substitution, the positional constraints of at least 3 defenders, 2 midfielders and 1 forward are followed. Let's say the playing 11 is set out in a 3-5-2 formation and defender 3 has not played. He is to be subbed. Even though forward 3 is the first sub, it is defender 4 who will be subbed in. Coming to the chips are a very crucial part of the FPL game. There are 4 different types of chips in FPL and each of these are very important. And major point to remember is that in a game week only one chip can be used. Wildcard is a chip which allows you to have unlimited free transfers before a game week. It is basically a reset your team option and you can pick a brand new 15-man squad anytime during the season. There are 2 different wildcards available, Wildcard 1 and Wildcard 2. The first wildcard can be used in the first half of the season and it has to be used by game week 19, that is December 28, 2021 for this particular FPL season. And the second one will be active from game week 20 till 38. Note that if you do not use your first wildcard by game week 19, then it expires. Free hit is another chip which allows you to have unlimited free transfers but just for that particular game week. That is, the team will return back to what it was once the game week is done. This chip can be used once throughout the season. The triple captain chip is very straightforward. Your captain points are tripled instead of doubled. Again, this chip can be used once throughout the season. Bench boost adds your bench points to the game week score. Can be used once throughout the season. There are some special types of game weeks amongst the 38. These are called blank and double game weeks. In a blank game week, one or more teams will not have matches. FPL will alert you beforehand for these particular type of game weeks. Similarly, double game weeks are when one or more teams will have 2 matches in that particular game week. Last season, that is FPL season 2021, we even had a triple game week. Again, FPL will declare such game weeks beforehand. Both blank and double game weeks usually happens during the second half of the season. Now, chips become very important during this type of game weeks. Simply put, let's say suddenly you have a blank game week in game week 30 where only 8 teams are playing. What do you do with the players from your team and these players are from the rest of the 12 teams? If you transfer them out, then you have to take multiple -4 hits to transfer them out and then to bring them back in because they might have good fixtures and you want to keep them post game week 30. This is when the free hit chip comes to your rescue. You can play the chip, get in 15 players from those 8 teams playing just in game week 30, and once this game week is over, you have your original team back. Similarly, the second wildcard is generally used before a major double game week. You can use it to bring in players who have 2 matches as they have a higher chance of giving you more points. Point enhancing chips like triple captain and bench boost are usually used in a double game week, as players having 2 matches have a higher chance of giving points than a player playing one particular match. Your probability of getting points increases. So let's say you have a double game week in game week 35, then you can use your wildcard in game week 34 to bring in the double game week players of 35, that is you want to put in maximum double game week players in your team, and you can use a triple captain or your bench boost chip in the double game week, which is game week 35. Again, it is important to remember that only one chip can be used in one single game week. Now, some general tips regarding to FPL. The first important point is good football players are not always good FPL assets. For example, players like Kante, Fernandinho, who are great players and without whom their teams will perhaps not perform as well. But they are not going to contribute much for goals or assists, and thus they are not really FPL assets. Similarly, goalkeepers of top clubs are not always good FPL picks. We shall come back to this particular point later. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and this is a statement you'll find which all veteran FPL managers state. This is because it's a long season. You don't have to top every single game week. You just need to keep ticking along, making sure that you are performing above average and that you finish the season. I find many new FPL players just giving up after a 5 or 6 game weeks, and they don't have a good score and they feel that it's not possible for them to finish strongly and they just give up. Just finish the season, just keep ticking along, playing with it, and you'll find that you have a lot of time and you have a lot of chances to catch up ground and to finish at a respectable score. If you do not have a great start, then don't worry, there's plenty of time to catch up. Use the chips wisely. especially chips like your first wildcard and free hit. For your first wildcard, wait at least you have 7 to 8 game weeks of data to see how each team and the players are functioning. Because it's the start of a season, players are a bit rusty, they have just not yet caught up to the tune. So the good players that you have perhaps picked, they're not performing well. So if you are in a hurry and you just use your wildcard bang after game week 2 or game week 3, you don't have enough information and you might end up losing players who are actually now starting to perform, and you are bringing in players who just had a small burst of points and now they are not going to and now they are not performing. So use your wildcard intelligently, use it when you have sufficient amount of information within you. Similarly, the free hit chip, don't just randomly use it in a game week because you have one or two missing players. It will become very difficult later on in the season when blank and double game weeks come your way. So if you have to play a game week with perhaps 10 players, play it, that's fine. I mean, you can always make it up later on. But you need that free hit chip, especially when there's a big blank game week coming up, when there's around 8 to 10 teams only playing and more than half of the Premier League teams do not have games. You need that free hit chip then. The premium players have high prices because they're proven FPL assets. They're the focal point of their team's attacks and are always in contention to return points, making them excellent captaincy choices. They're premium for a reason. So you need to have those premiums. Many FPL managers, just try to avoid the premium players because they're so costly. But just remember that they're costly for a reason, and that is why they have so high ownership as well. They're basically FPL royalty. On a similar note, keep your captaincy simple. Try to captain premium players only who are more likely to return points. For example, Salah being on penalties and taking much more shots, or has potential to give much more assets. Much more assists is a better captaincy option than Firmino, who is very integral to the way Liverpool play, but he's just not that goal-scoring threat as Mo Salah is. Differential captains are great, but there are some calculated reasoning behind it. So you don't always have to go for a differential captain randomly just for the sake of being differential. So when you're going for a differential captain, make sure that you have done your research, make sure that you're clear in your mind as to why you are captaining for that particular game week. The start to a FPL season is very challenging because we have to consider a lot of variables. There are new transfers coming in, players from different leagues. There's new managements involved in many Premier League teams. You have the past historical data, which are biased because of factors which are not present at this point of time. For example, that a team XYZ might have performed very well because they had a very good manager, but that manager has now left. So stats of those teams, if you follow just blindly those stats, then it's not actually reflecting all the factors because the manager is not there, so the teams will perform a bit differently. Due to all these muddled up things and loads of extra information, it is best to start simple and boring. So just go with the safe choices, go with historically strong performing assets whose managers have are there, or assets who have performed irrespective of who the manager is or what their team combination is. Try to avoid doubling up on defenses till we have more information, that how does a team defensive assets perform, how does the team defenses generally perform. Take a look at their form, get all this information in, and so just try to start simple, and you can always change, using your free transfers. You can always switch in, bring in those players that you want, double up on defenses maybe 3-4 game weeks down the line. You can always do that. That being said, it is always fun to have 1 or 2 differentials in the team, but the idea is that you do not go too overboard with it. Hits are to be taken only when necessary. So just because they are to be taken, just don't take it. -4 seems like very less, but if you take up, let's say, around 20 hits during the season in a 38 game week, randomly you take one like every alternate game week, you're losing around 80 points. So 80 points is a lot of points in FPL. So take a hit only when it is necessary to be taken and when you have planned it for 3 to 4 game weeks. So for example, you want to bring a player and plan on captaining him twice in the next 4 game weeks, then you can take a hit and bring him in, because the chances of him returning you those -4 points that you have taken is quite large now. And or let's say you want to remove a single game week player and bring in a double game week player, then it's all right to get a hit, because he has a higher chance of countering that -4 points and even giving you more points, because he's playing 2 games in one single game week. So these are the scenes when hits generally pay off. Very rarely do you see bringing in a player for a hit and that player to reward you with a double-digit point in that very same game week. So if you just want to take a punt, you're more than welcome to do it, but chances are that most of the times that punt is not going to work out. Remember to play the game how you want to. So this is the most important thing, and you just need to enjoy yourself. So play how you want to, play what keeps it interesting, what the game becomes interesting for you. If it is taking hits, then take the hits. There are loads of FPL managers who love playing that, love playing that risky game. They have very good historical FPL records also playing hits. Whatever works for you. So you have to remember that at least around 5 to 6 million people are playing FPL. So there are around 5 to 6 million FPL managers every season. So a finish inside the top 200k, you means you're finished within the top 3.5% of the managers, which is great. So it looks bad that that you're like somewhere around 150k or 160k, but you're in the top 3.5%. So that's like amazing. So don't worry about your scores. Don't worry too much about okay, what is it? I'm not performing well and just not it. So just watch the matches, go through the datas, go through the statistics, interact with other FPL managers, Twitter, YouTube. There are loads of FPL communities, there are loads of FPL podcasts. So just interact with various FPL managers, make new friends, and have that fun banter in your mini leagues. Just enjoy. So if you're liking this content from FPL Camp, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Please leave a comment below with what your thoughts are. It's always great to hear from you all. So quick point, like I stated earlier, that goalkeepers of strong Premier League teams are usually very high priced, and they are not really always good FPL assets. So they are usually priced around 6 million to 6.5 million. And I've seen many new FPL managers, they tend to have 2 strong rotating goalkeepers. So like you are spending around 11 to 12 million of your 100 million budget just on 2 goalkeepers. So this is actually a bit detrimental to your FPL team, and for multiple reasons. So first of all that goalkeepers are rarely those explosive FPL assets. Over a season you'll find more or less all the goalkeepers giving you a very similar type of points, and rarely do you see a goalkeeper really explode and like have a gap of around 30-40 points with the other goalkeepers. So the aim should be to spend as less as possible on the 2 goalkeeping positions. The 1.5 to 2 million that you save in the goalkeeping position can be used to get better players in the midfield position or in the forward position or even in the defensive position. So for example, right now Trent Alexander-Arnold is priced at 7.5 million, who is a very good FPL asset, who is explosive, and you are having to take, let's say, a 5 million or a 5.5 million defender in his place because you don't have that budget. So if you save that 2 million from your goalkeeping positions, then you can invest that 2 million to upgrade your one of your defenders to Trent Alexander-Arnold, to have a higher ceiling of giving you points with FPL points. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that these premium goalkeepers are mostly not the top FPL point returners, like I just said, and this is because FPL has points for saves that a goalkeeper makes. So for every 3 saves that a goalkeeper makes in a match, he receives 1 save point. This is very important because let's say that there's a strong team, a strong Premier League team, the Big Six, let's say. You have Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester United. So these teams have very strong defenses, so they tend to concede very few shots on target, and subsequently their goalkeepers have to make a lot less saves to make. So this makes them miss out on the save points. So let us, for example, consider last season. Ederson, who won the Golden Gloves, keeping 19 clean sheets, scored 160 FPL points, whereas Meslier from Leeds scored 156 points with 11, that is 8 less clean sheets. Now Meslier was 1.5 million cheaper than Ederson. So you can see that just spending 1.5 million less, you just received 4 points less, which was great. I mean, which is always good in FPL. Now, why this happened? Because Meslier made a mammoth 140 saves as compared to Ederson's 66, earning him those save points and additional bonus points. The more saves a goalkeeper makes, the more chances he has of getting those bonus points as well. So if you check out the past histories of FPL, then this is more or less the same story every year. And this is a very reason why most managers tend to not spend more than 5 million on a keeper. And for 2 goalkeepers, the thumb rule is that you do not spend more than 9.5. And even many managers try to spend even less. For example, me personally, I tend to go with a 4.5 million set and forget goalkeeper and the 4 million backup from that very team. For example, you can go with a Backman and a Foster combination this particular season, or maybe a Sanchez and the second Brighton goalkeeper for this particular season. Right, a few more general tips. So don't just fill your team with premiums and then weak players in most of the positions. So many new managers, they try to have like 3 or 4 premiums in their teams. By the premium players, I mean players who cost around 11 million, 12 million, and they just take up 4 of them, and for the rest of the positions you're going along with very average players of 4.5 or maximum 6 million. This is not good. Balance is very important while having your FPL teams. So and on that particular note, aim to bring in those premium players whom you would like to captain. So it makes sense to spend 12 to 12.5 million on a player only when you want to captain him and get double of those explosive returns. I mean, that's why you're paying for you're paying extra for those kind of players, or else it makes no sense to spend that much amount of money on one single player. A very important point is that make sure your bench has at least 1 to 2 playing options. So who can contribute those 2 points or those maybe a 3-pointer. If you have a bench defender, then maybe the occasional clean sheets or those occasional appearing points of 2 points, 3 points, something like that. Because it is always better to have 2 points rather than 0, right? So I find many teams just taking the bench for granted. Many new FPL managers, that is, they just take the bench for granted. They say that okay, we never need a bench, but it is not so, because in a season of 38 game weeks, in at least 4 to 5 times you'll find that your bench players are called into actions. Players are randomly rested, players fall ill, they become injured, so freak injury during let's say pre-match warm-up. Loads of things can happen. So your bench is very important. Make sure that you have at least 1 to 2 playing options in your bench. Right. As mentioned earlier, vice captains are also very, very important. So so it's very important to have more than one captaincy option. Try to have. The basic thing is that try to have at least 2 premiums in your team whom you can captain, and give the vice captainship to the second choice premium for that particular game week. That is. And to make your captaincy choice simple, a guideline is that try to make a captaincy matrix. It makes it easier to plan that for which game week, which premium do you want to captain, and that also makes it easier for you to plan your future transfers down the line. Try to avoid players who are likely to give points or very good players, but they are rotated very heavily. For example, Man City's squad is a FPL nightmare, and it's commonly known as Pep Roulette, where it's nearly impossible to say which Man City player will start in week out, barring a few like Ederson. Kevin De Bruyne is mostly rotation proof. Now Ruben Diaz has come in, who is also mostly rotation proof. Lately, Chelsea's squad, it's rotated a lot, so it's very frustrating to own such kind of players like Foden, Mahrez, Pulisic, who are great players who can whenever they're on the pitch, you seem like okay, they're always involved in some kind of goals, assists, something or the other, but there's always that risk of seeing them on the bench. So it's very frustrating to own them. So try to avoid them as much as possible. And if you do get such players, then that make sure that they have a strong game time behind them. That okay, they are now more or less the guaranteed starter, not 100% confirmed obviously, but they're more or less going to start, and also have a duration that you are planning to bring them in. So if you're bringing them in for a long duration, then make sure to you have to face the chance that they are going to be benched, and you have to prepare for the alternate option in that case. So you need to have a strong bench definitely in that particular case. Now plan ahead as to when to use those chips. It's very important. Try to find out when the blank and double game weeks are, and for this particular reason, if you're on Twitter, then please try to follow Ben Krellin at the red Brent Krellin. That's his Twitter handle. He's a genius who works out all the possible double and blank game weeks in the season well in advance, and he religiously posts them on Twitter. So make sure you follow him. You'll get to know a lot about the fixture schedule, and try to plan your transfers. That these are the possible times when you want to bring in players from various other teams. When there's when fixtures become perhaps a very easy relatively. So try to make these plans, but also don't be fixated on one single strategy. So keep multiple opportunities open, keep multiple strategies open, and don't be fixated on one particular one of them. So like football, FPL tactics needs to be adaptable depending on the situation. You will have unforeseen injuries, you will have unforeseen red cards, loads of things can happen. So try to keep your strategies flexible, and just enjoy, just have fun.